Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's, well, let's be real, it's a little bit heavier than usual. We're talking about stalking.
Yeah, it's not exactly the lightest subject, but it's such an important one. And, even though this deep dive is specifically for our awesome listeners, the information here is something anyone can find useful.
Hmm.
Like safety. That's a universal thing.
Holy. And that's kind of the point of this whole deep dive thing, right? It's about giving you the knowledge to feel empowered, not scared. So before we dive in, a quick disclaimer.
Yeah.
We're not trying to freak anyone out here, just trying to equip you with some seriously valuable info.
Exactly. Think of it like a safety toolkit for your life.
I like that. A
Yeah.
safety toolkit. And for today's Toolkit Essentials, we're turning to Dr. John Crimmins and his book, How to Stop a Stalker, Take Back Control of Your Life.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it's full of insights. And one thing that really jumped out right from the start was just how common stalking actually is. Like, the numbers are way higher than you might think.
Oh, for sure.
Crimmins cites some pretty alarming statistics. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 17 men will experience stalking in their lifetime. 1 in 6 women. That's wild, right?
It's huge. And honestly, even those numbers are probably lower than the reality. A lot of times people don't even realize they're being stalked or, they might be too afraid or embarrassed to actually report it. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. There's a lot of stigma around it, for sure.
100%.
Okay, so let's start by defining our terms here. When we say stalking, what exactly do we mean?
Right, because it's not always some creepy guy in a trench coat hiding in the bushes.
No, definitely not.
Stalking is really about a pattern of behavior, right? A pattern of behavior that's intended to intimidate, control, or even scare someone.
And this is something Dr. Crimmins talks about, this idea that stalking is ultimately about control.
Yeah.
It's not just about wanting to be near someone, it's about wanting power over them.
It's like this desire to manipulate almost, to have this hold on someone. And for the victim, it creates this constant feeling of being watched, of being unsafe. It's unsettling, to say the least.
Absolutely. And the reasons behind it,
Right.
why someone would want to control another person like that, well, that can be pretty complex.
Right. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, is there?
Definitely not. But Crimmins gets into some of the common threads, like obsession, revenge.
Yeah, or even this, warped sense of entitlement. Like, the stalker might think that the victim somehow belongs to them. It's like they've created this whole narrative in their head, and often that narrative has very little to do with reality.
Right, it's all about their own distorted perception.
Exactly.
And that's what makes it so dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Because it can escalate. And
Right.
that's what makes this whole thing so tricky, right? It's not always some guy jumping out from behind a bush. It can start subtly, almost like a slow creep into your life.
Exactly. And that's why Dr. Crimmins stresses the importance of spotting those early warning signs, because things can escalate without you even realizing it.
Which is scary, because some of the red flags he lists could seem almost harmless at first. He talks about persistent, unwanted communication, someone showing up unannounced, unexplained gifts. Think back to that person who wouldn't stop texting even after you said you weren't interested.
And this is where context is key. Like, getting a gift isn't inherently creepy, but if you've already told someone to back off, that totally changes things. It's that pattern of ignoring your boundaries,
Yeah.
that disregard for your no. That's the real warning sign.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But let's get real. If someone listening right now is thinking, wait a minute, this sounds kind of familiar, what can they actually do about it?
This is where things get empowering. Dr. Crimmins is big on documentation. And I'm not talking about writing a novel here, but every little detail matters. Date, time, what happened, how it made you feel. It's like building a case file. Each detail helps establish a pattern of behavior, which can be crucial if you ever need legal protection.
So you're documenting everything, building that case file.
Mhm.
But what about right now? That's where safety planning comes in, right?
100%. We're talking about proactive steps to protect yourself. And there are tons of options. Dr. Crimmins talks about setting firm boundaries, like actually saying no clearly and repeatedly, and blocking communication channels on your phone, email, social media, the works.
Basically, make it crystal clear that this behavior is not okay and you're not playing around.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to change up your routine. If someone can't predict your moves, it's harder for them to, well, stalk you.
Makes sense. And Dr. Crimmins also recommends enhancing home security, right?
Yep, that's something he emphasizes. He says that even small steps like installing a security system can really make a difference in terms of feeling safer.
Yeah, like cameras, alarms, or even reinforcing your doors. Just, making your home a less accessible target.
Exactly. And let's be real, sometimes it might also be helpful to, think about self-defense.
Definitely.
Dr. Crimmins doesn't go into too much detail about that, but he does mention that self-defense training can be incredibly valuable, not just for physically defending yourself, but for developing an awareness and confidence that can actually deter stalkers.
Right, because a lot of times it's not just about fighting back. It's about making yourself look less vulnerable. It's about having that confidence. And, even just thinking about this stuff, it can really mess with your head. Dealing with stalking or even just the suspicion of it, that's got to take a toll.
It really does. It's a form of trauma, plain and simple, and it's crucial to acknowledge that.
So when we talk about healing and support, we have to remember that. Stalking is traumatic. It's not just an annoyance, it's a big deal.
Exactly. And there's no shame in reaching out for help. In fact, Dr. Crimmins recommends a two-pronged approach: external support and internal self-care.
So it's about having people in your corner and finding ways to take care of yourself.
Exactly. Talking to friends, family, a therapist, it's all about processing what you're going through and feeling less alone. But then there's the internal stuff too, support groups, mindfulness, exercise, anything that helps you regain that sense of peace and control in your own life.
Because let's be real, when someone's stalking you, it's like they're trying to steal your sense of safety, your control. So taking it back, both internally and externally, that's huge.
It really is. And if things are really bad, remember, contacting law enforcement is not an overreaction. It's about prioritizing your safety and using all the resources available to you.
100%. If you take away just one thing from this whole deep dive, let it be this. You're not alone. Stalking is serious, but so is taking action. Even small steps, like documenting incidents or telling a friend, can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who might have a friend confide in them about being stalked, remember to believe them. Listen without judgment and support them in whatever way feels safe and empowering for them. Sometimes simply knowing you're not alone can make all the difference in the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, a massive thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us for this incredibly important deep dive. Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to staying safe, so keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep looking out for yourselves and each other. Until next time.